giving reverence unto the Creator, to our Chief Elder, Dr. Ray Hayes, in his absentia, to the officers, and you, the members. And we give a special shout out this morning to our internet audience, because it's you that are helping to spread the word. And the word is that God is still on the throne, and he's on the throne for African people. Shit. Yeah. Now, my brothers and sisters, in the last year and a half, I've been driving by this church in Crestwood, Missouri, which is very near one of the stores that I merchandise every morning. As I drove by the church this past week, I noticed a sign or some words on the marquee which said, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." And everybody here should know that phrase, "for we walk by faith and not by sight," is a regular cliche in the Christian church. And every day as I drive by this church, every day I have the misfortune of reading this sign. And every day I get different thoughts and different ideas about this faith thing. In the realm of Christianity, you must first believe that there is a God. And secondly, you must believe that God, through a miraculous display and story of magic, caused a woman to become pregnant without her consent, splitting himself in half and being equal to himself, and then birthing himself at a particular time in history, and having all of the power in heaven and earth in the palm of his hand. Shake. Well, there was a time in life wherein when I would read that sign or a sign similar to that, I would have been like, "Amen, brother, show you right. Come on with the come," and thought nothing else about it. But since having come into right knowledge and received into the fold of you spiritual intellectuals with Dr. Higgins as chief elder and teacher, the Ma'akaru, my spirit in discerning truth for me has informed me that faith is not what we need. When facts are available to those who truly seek truth, and until we as a people seek the truth, until we as a people live the truth, until we as a people teach the truth, it does not matter about your faith. For one thing I always reiterate on is the fact that the stories that we've eaten, the stories that we swallow, the stories that we chewed, and just like our oppressor, the same stories that they ate, that they chewed, that they swallowed, that they digested, and then as they cast it out as waste, were the stories of our ancient ancestors not as thugs or dope dealers, not as pimps or players, not as gangsters and drug users and abusers, but as the chosen people of the God Almighty. That's truth, justice, balance, harmony, and a reciprocity within our spirit that puts out positive thoughts, positive actions, and thereby getting positive results. I say, can I get it? I say, to those who don't know, and I'm aware because of the brainwashing by our oppressors, be they black or white and black. The fact is, we who are of African descent are not Gentiles, and we are definitely not Jews. I say, that is, unless you're a member of one of the Greek fraternities, of which I am, that we so badly didn't need in our HBCUs, but I'll leave that alone for now. And since I'm on it, I'll say this. Many of the Christians, many of the churches, many of the organizations, in their ignorance, have actually denounced Masonic organizations because the higher you go, the more truth you know. Well, those profound teachings, which were developed in the Nile Valley civilization in Kemet, Egypt, which is now being called nothing more than Egypt, due to the mere fact of being relocated in the Middle East, which is what they call it, which is still in the northeast corner of Africa, and disguised with more deception is the location for the Masonic organization. But just like everything else, this information was stolen. It was plagiarized. It was copied. And it was even relocated to a place called Jerusalem, and given as his author a king whose name was Solomon. And I'm sorry to say, but the existence of a king named Solomon was again non-existent. And the only relevance we have of a King Solomon are pictures and dimensions of outer courts and inner courts, statues and jewels and gold, and yet we have not a stone to Solomon's temple, but that 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 year old pyramid is still standing as it was when it was put together. Yes, and we've got stones, we've got tunnels, we've got ancestors, we got writings, we got everything we need to prove the existence of our reality. Yes. And yet we allow all of the teachings and all of the information to come back void, but we'll fight one another till death do us part over the existence of a non-existent Savior. I say, if I were to title this message this morning, I would ask the question, why walk by faith when you can run with facts? Yes. Why walk by when you can run with facts. Now, the idea of walking by faith, my friends, was recorded in the oppressor's Bible. Whether it be the King James, the Life Application, the Good News, the NIV, the Bishop's Bible, the Amplified Bible, whether it be any of these, the New American Standard, the dates annotated, and on and on and on. If it's a Bible, your oppressor wrote it. And it was not written for people who were said to have no souls. I say, and yet we are falling head over heels to ensure that we receive our oppressor's idea of salvation, and we are perishing from the lack of knowledge. Shit, is everybody all right? Come on now. When I saw the marquee on the church lawn, I automatically knew where the phrase "walk by faith and not by sight" came from, which is 2 Corinthians 5 and 7. And had for its author another fictitious being who was first said to be named Saul. Yet, know the story. Y'all have heard this story, I'm sure. He was on his way to destroy and cause havoc on the so-called Christians. And, of course, there was no such thing as Christians back then. And he was knocked to the ground by a light brighter than the noonday sun. I'd have to say that sun was the S-U-N of God at noontime. And he spoke to him in the voice of one whom he called Jesus Christ, saying, Saul, Saul, why art thou persecuting me before these folks, Christian folks? And according to the story, Saul was blinded for 3 agonizing days. And I begin to wonder if at that time the accusation of being without light was as brutal as losing a foot due to non-conforming and attempting to run away, attempting to be liberated. I wonder if this thing here was in his place, until we recognize that Paul or Saul was in a position. He became Paul later on. But I wonder if being stripped by and of his native land made him to be more submissive to another who was over him. Oh, but this is the same Saul who was renamed Paul, who didn't have a problem with his name because it was not a slave name, it was a Jewish name. And as far as these fictitious authors were concerned, after his conversion by the S-U-N of God, the only people whom God loved in his vision were the Jews first, and then the Gentiles who were Greeks. Why walk by faith when we can run with facts? According to Luke's historical record, in Acts 9 and 1, we find that if Jesus existed during the time of the disciples, and there were 12 of them, thinking about the 12 planets, 350 years later, we are told that Luke wrote the account on Paul. Yet Luke came generation by then, being 450 plus years old, it says that Luke would have had a problem getting around with his walking. It says that he would have a problem with his speech and his talking. It says that he would have had a problem with his writing, and yet we are told to believe this by faith. For a definition of faith, our oppressor's Bible tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Or, in other words, faith is confidence or trust that you place in a special person or thing, or a belief not based on proof and neither facts. Now, Mr. James W. Fowler, who lived from 1940 through 2015, who just recently made his transition. If white folks make transitions, I don't know. They didn't have God before we came along. So with me, that's up for debate. But Mr. Fowler, a psychologist, clearly related his studies to the work of Piaget, Erickson, and Kohlberg. Some more gems. Regarding aspects of psychological development in the children and adults. And Fowler defines faith as an activity of trusting, committing, and relating to the world based on a set of assumptions of how one is related to others and the world of our existence. The etymology of the word faith is thought to date around 1200 to 1250 from the Middle English word fight. Fight via Anglo-French fed, Old French fight, Latin fidem, accusative of fides, which boils down to trust. In the epistemological theory, which maintains that faith is independent of reason, or the reason and faith are hostile to one another, and the usual end result is that faith usually becomes superior and wins out every time. Faith. Why? Because in the process of research, it has been found that this is not an easy task. It's not a task at all for the lazy. It's not a task for the nonchalant. And neither is it a task for the ignorant. I can get a all right? Well, in this psychology of faith development, we find 6 stages. First, there is the preschool period or stage. This is called the intuitive projective stage, and in this stage we find confusion and high impressionability through stories and rituals. People learn in stages from the age of 1 to 3, 3 to 6, and so forth and so on. You have your id, your ego, your super ego, parent, adult, and child egos, and as you develop, you gain information, and as you gain information, you begin to form and develop your own personality. But the start of our mental development, wherein we begin to develop who we are according to those who taught us and the paradigm from which they were coming. Tell them they bad, tell them they're ugly, tell them they're nappy, and tell them all of the negative children see our young men, our teenagers, even old folks are out there selling drugs and doing everything they shouldn't be doing. But what is going to happen when these children grow up? They're going to replicate what it is that they see the adults do. Secondly, we have the school going period. This is called the mythic literal stage. In this stage, one is provided with information which is accepted without much debate. If any, to conform with social norms, with norms being cultural products, our values, our customs, and our traditions, which represent an individual's basic knowledge of what others think about you and what it is that you should do. Norms are described by sociologists as informed and informal understandings that govern an individual's behavior in society. Yeah. So, my friends, there are certain ways that you, me, them, they are expected to act. And when you get outside of that box, you begin to draw attention to yourself. Though not considered to be per se formal laws within society, norms still work to promote a great deal of social control. You know, people talk about, well, I don't care what they think about me, but you should care. That's part of the problem. Seems that nobody that's younger than 50 is trying to have pride anymore. You know, in the old church, we heard that pride is a killer. But folks, if you don't have any pride, you will do anything in front of anybody, to anybody, and it won't matter at the effect that others see in you. Though not considered to be formal laws, we still use those as laws. And that would be a world without consensus, a common ground of structures. And in this day and time, I often wonder what the world is coming to. And in every culture, be they red, yellow, black, white, or brown, our need to conform to the norms of our culture allows us to become socialized to the culture in which we live. Oh, I heard Rodney King say, can't we all just get along? Third, we have the late adolescent stage. In this stage, the faith acquired is concreted in the belief system, with belief being the state of mind in which a person thinks something to be the case, with or without there being any empirical evidence that to prove that something is the case with factual certainty. Another way of defining belief is a mental representation of an attitude positively oriented toward the likelihood of something being true, with the outcome being the purpose of belief is to guide an action and not to vindicate nor indicate a truth. And this stage is called the synthetic conventional stage. Our fourth point says that we find the early adulthood stage of an individual called the individual reflective stage. And it is in this stage that the individual critically analyzes adopted and accepted faith without even stopping to think with existing systems of faith. My brothers and sisters, when my parents started me out in church, I was yay big, I guess. So I never fell into the position where I started questioning things at that point in my life. It really didn't mean anything to me because if mama and daddy said a certain thing, I would do that. I wouldn't question, mama, why I gotta go to church? No, because I knew already that if I didn't go, I had hell to catch when they got back home from church. Folks, it's a fact that if others have a dependency on others, they will do what's necessary to survive and do that often. Most folks survive anyway on one another. Talking about crabs in a barrel, you got a visitor over here that's present because friend invited them to eat at church because it's free. You got Miss Usher back there on the door because she's good and bossy and loves commanding people around. You got Mr. Temptation over here in the choir because he can sing until the sisters are crawling all around the pulpit on the floor. And then you got Brother Pastor over here who knows the truth. But if he tells it, the folks will walk away. They'll stop time. And they might just stop coming. And we are witnesses that our people which are of African descent have failed to honor their ancestors. They failed to respect their ancestors. And they failed to hear their ancestors. And yes, they have by their own will and volition betrayed those who came before us, who were beaten, who were kidnapped, who were lynched, and who were hung, who were gut cut. And the question remains, why am I walking by faith when I can run with faith? But wait a minute, y'all. For in our fifth stage, which is the midlife stage, or the stage of negotiating a settlement in life, the midlife stage. And it's in this stage that most folks realize the limits of their logic and facing the paradoxes of transcendence in life. That is, as we call it, our transitional force. And so we began to ask, what about heaven? What about hell? What about reciprocation? What about all the things that I've got to reach since I was a child? And it is within what we deem the mysteries of life. And so often, after not having the resources and the abilities and the gift of seeking that which men crave, which is knowledge, their tendency is to give up and return to those sacred childhood stories and symbols of the pre-acquired or pre-adopted faith system of which was given them by their oppressors when they were only children. And last but not least, we find stage 6, which is called universalizing faith, or what we call enlightenment. And it is at this stage, when one has been through trials and tribulations in life, it is at this stage that they've learned, if nothing else, the principles of love and justice, of compassion and care. Oh, I know many of us got one foot in the grave and one foot on the land. More like on a banana peel, but wait on it, y'all. For while others continue to walk in faith, we, my friends, shall know the facts of our existence, the facts of our genius, the facts of our heritage, the facts of our inherent salvation, the facts about our power, and the facts about our past. And with these facts, we shall run and not get weary, and let them walk until they faint. For we shall mount up with the wings of the falcon. For I can hear the voice of Nefertiti saying on page 86 of our Hosea, which are the oldest writings known to man, thousands of years before a Bible ever came into being. Come and I'll show you a land, they say, torn up by turmoil. That which should not be has now come to pass. People will take up weapons of war, and the land will live in confusion. People will spill blood for bread, and laugh out loud at pain and misery. And none will weep over death. For everyone's heart shall care only for him or herself. And a person will sit with his or her back turned, while another is sitting next to them, while one another is murdering them. They say, I show you the son and daughter as enemy, the brother and sister as foe, and the child slain mother and father bewailing. For she, a king, shall come out of the south, and that king's name will be Amen, the vindicated one, the son of a woman of Nubia. And he will join together the double crown, and the land will be enclosed within his grasp. And the people of his reign will rejoice, for in me, the Son of Man, will make his name for all eternity. The evil-minded plotters of treason will hold back their speech through fear of him. The Asiatic invaders who have lived by faith will fall before his fury, and the Libyan invaders will be consumed by his flame, and the rebels, they'll yield before his wrath, and traitors will be brought low by his might. And it's then that my ox, that righteousness and order, will return to its rightful place. And is that is their devil, y'all, creator of evil and chaos, will be driven away. And one of these days, my friends, when we've done our work in striving to be what it is that Armand would have us to be, one of these days, when we set our swords in the shed of time, one of these days, my God will look out and say, well done, thine good and faithful servant. Why walk by faith when we can run with faith? Amen.